we realized that everything we do on land ends up in the bay, and nature's starting to sound the alarm.
Welcome to Game Changers Live from Miami, Florida. My name is Sergio Tigera. I'm your host. And each and every week, we bring you someone who has been a game changer in their field and who's touched the lives of thousands to get their perspective on their journey, their mindset, their struggles and successes so that we can inspire you on your journey. So let's get started right now.
And welcome to Game Changers Live. You can catch us each and every week on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, LinkedIn Live, Facebook, whatever other platform you choose to listen to. And like we said, we focus on game changers. And I'm so excited about today's guest, which is a trailblazer in the world of Bay resilience, right? Which is Irela Bague. She's the Miami Dade's first chief Bay officer. So this role, it really focuses on water quality issues, policy and appropriations related to the health and recovery of Biscayne Bay, which is, being a local Miami guy. Biscayne Bay is the heart of South Florida, of boating and being outdoors in the sun. And there's nothing better than being in a beautifully preserved and pristine Biscayne Bay. So Irela, she's also the president and CEO of Bague Group, a full-service consulting firm with over 20 years of experience in Florida with expertise in strategic communications, water policy, sustainability, climate mitigation, adaptation, and resilience. She is also the chair of Miami-Dade County's Biscayne Bay Task Force, vice chair of the Resilience Committee of the Greater Miami Chamber of Commerce, and serves as the City of Coral Gables Sustainability Advisory Board. And then very cool, she also has a podcast called Resilient Forward. It's a podcast promoting solutions to our most challenging environmental issues and frequently writes for the Sun-Sentinel South Florida 100 editorial section. So Irela, welcome.
Thank you, Sergio, for having me today.
It's so great to have you here in the month of March. It's International Women's Day. So I'll say Game Changers, we're celebrating all the game-changing women and ladies in our community and around the country. So it's fantastic to have you here. So Irela, before we get into what your role is now and what you're doing in Biscayne Bay and why now and so forth, give me a little background on you and how is it that you became so passionate about what you're doing now?
Well, I became passionate. Well, I'll give you my background. So I started my career in Miami-Dade County. Ironically, that I came back to Miami-Dade County. But I was an aide to a commissioner, and that kind of gave me an opening to the world of, public sector, dealing with the public. Mainly was my job. And so solving problems and so forth. And then I was recruited out of the county by the state government to go work with the South Florida Water Management District. And for those who don't know what that is the big system of canals that keeps us dry and is the reason why we've been able to grow such a large metropolis, South Florida community at this point. So all those canals end up in our waterways when there's a lot of rain and floods. But my passion for this really started in the 7th grade when I went to the Everglades on a field trip. And I realized that this swampy place is also our source of life and water. And, it kind of was like that aha moment. I was like, wow, okay, wait a minute. We rely on this resource to live here. That is huge, right? So That was what, and so, having gone into working with the South Florida Water Management District, the very entity that keeps us dry, but also has to make sure that there's enough water for the Everglades in our natural system was a huge challenge and something that I really just dove in, no pun intended. And kind of like the rest is history. After Water Management District, I worked there, and then after I left, I ran for office, State House. I didn't win, but I won anyway, the way I see it, because of my work, my previous work. Governor Jeb Bush had decided to appoint me to the South Florida Water Management District Governing Board, which is really basically they're commissioners overseeing Everglades restoration and water supply and flood protection. And it's just so that was another crash course on water and all issues related to water. It was a fascinating time of my life and a great opportunity. And after that, I just never looked back. I just kept on with the same topic, and I became a big advocate, primarily of Biscayne Bay, because we tend to forget. It's such a beautiful watershed, but we tend to forget and take it for granted. Right?
So for those of you that don't live in South Florida, the Everglades is the largest. Essentially, it's a river, right? That's flowing down from Lake Okeechobee, and it doesn't look like a river, right?
No,
but
they call it the river of grass.
Yeah, the river of grass. But a lot of people don't realize that we rely on that in a huge way, down here in South Florida, and it's a beautiful place, just like unlike any other in the country. And so if you're ever down here, you need to come see that. But it's great that at 7 years old that you got to, back when they had field trips. I don't know if we still have field trips anymore.
Yeah.
But it's so impressive to see it as a young girl. And it was great that entered in your mind and it clicked, in such a way that it became your passion going forward.
Yeah, it's I think when you're younger, you just kind of I think are more intuitive. As adults we're too busy. We're
too busy thinking, okay, well,
on the roses, right?
yeah, that's true. And so, so you kept going up, and so you didn't study, water management or anything about nature and the Everglades and things like. What did you study as you went up?
I was a theater major, believe it or not.
Oh my gosh, there you go. Perfectly suited.
I really didn't know what I wanted to do, so I just ended up just graduating with liberal arts, but I did a little acting back in the day.
Oh,
so,
there you go.
Yeah, but honestly, as a spokesperson, as an advocate, as a people person in communications, it just kind of that
helps.
That helped a lot. That helped a lot. And so my job is usually translating the very technical issues of our business, our water industry, into a very layman's way of understanding it, because it could get really technical.
Yeah. No, and that's fantastic, and such a great tool as a leader, as a role model, like you said, to be able to put things in simple terms that people understand, because that's when people can take action and they get it. That thing will click in their mind as well, and they'll say, okay, I got it now. I understand, and what's my role in trying to help Irela and South Florida in preserving our bay and preserving our natural resources. And all that stuff. I had on Louis Aguirre about a month or two back, and he's obviously very passionate about beach cleanup and so forth. And so being a voice and being able to communicate well is really, really important.
Yeah, Louis is one of my Bay heroes, because he's done so much in such a short amount of time, really focusing on the health of Biscayne Bay. I mean, I need to give him something, like an award or something.
Yeah. He's I think he's like on day 20 or 22 or something of beach cleanup.
Yeah.
Everything goes out there on Instagram, and he's filming himself with his shirt off, cleaning up the bay and cleaning up the beach and everything else. It's hilarious. It's awesome.
I mean, I think it's great that he's doing that, because he's a public figure here locally, and he's showing that everyone can do something, right?
Correct, exactly. Especially if you have the platform, you got the social media base and so forth. So then you made it up to the governing board, and what was that like for you?
Well, I mean, it was one of the first opportunities I had to really, it was like the stepping into leadership, right? To get that first dose of how to lead and how to work with others, because I was one of 9 members, and we all have to vote on things together, support different initiatives, and really work together and create consensus. And so it was one of the best opportunities in my career, and really listen to others, especially because that board made up of different folks from different parts of the state, so the district runs from Orlando all the way to the Keys. And so, it's a large community, so to speak. So learning from folks, from the agriculture community to developers to environmentalists. So I dealt with everybody, and really it was great to move some things forward, but particularly Everglades restoration. So we kind of kicked off that program 20 years ago. It's been a while.
Wow.
But I think it's been a minute.
So what has been the biggest difference? Because obviously it's difficult to tell from somebody who's not involved with it each and every day. somebody who's gone there and looked at it 20 years ago would probably say, okay, it looks the same. What have been the biggest changes that you say have had the biggest impact?
Well, again, imagine that the Everglades restoration is such a complex program because we realized that by creating all these channels and all these canals and dumping water out, we really didn't think about, it was for them, it was for the Army Corps of Engineers and the district, it was one mission: flood protection, flood control.
Right.
Never thought about what that would impact
that would have on
a natural system along the way. So, back in the 90s, they started realizing, well, wait a minute, we're basically choking our own system from needed water, especially when we're in droughts. And so the lot of work went into this program. So it was approved in 2000 by the federal and state governments in partnership. So half of the money is being paid by the state of Florida, and the other half is being paid by the U.S. government. And so it's a partnership that 68 projects from Lake Okeechobee all the way down to Florida Bay and Biscayne Bay included. And it's moving forward now more than ever, because I think our leadership at all levels of government are starting to realize that, our natural resources are also a base of our economy. And we need to step up and start, moving these projects forward quickly now. So, because we're running out of time. And so, with that, and then climate change and the impacts of that back in the 90s, nobody was talking about climate change or sea level rise. We weren't even thinking about it. So add those elements into the mix. And so now things become a little even more challenging. But I'm pleased with the progress that's happening moving forward. There's a project, Miami Trail, at Southwest 8th Street. Miami Trail is being raised because at the time when they built that roadway, they kind of choked the Everglades from that water that was supposed to down. Yeah. Naturally, they kind of choked it. And so that now we're spending a lot of money raising, because, you realize the consequences of growth. And that's why land planning and land managing our land and our future is very important, because you don't want to have to go back and fix it. Which is exactly what we're doing now.
That's been like the story of the Palmetto Expressway for the past 40 years. It's constantly being repaired.
Right.
Yeah.
So Everglades restoration is something that's moving forward, hopefully quicker than ever, because again, we've been at it for 20 years. And going back to Biscayne Bay, a few years ago in 2017, I just want to tell this story because it's important to understand where we are, and we're pretty much at a brink with Biscayne Bay. In 2017, scientists from NOAA and other organizations started realizing there's this seagrass dieoff near the Julia Tuttle area and North Bay, and that's a huge significant issue, because when you lose your seagrass, it's like losing life. Okay, because seagrass is the source of a lot of nursery life. It's food for the manatees, et cetera, et cetera. It's part of the system, and it's a filtration system. So we started seeing this heavy loss, and that was troubling. So a few of us got together and we set up a summit. And
the seagrass dying off, what was causing that to happen?
Well, I'll tell you right now. We put together this summit, and we brought every stakeholder in under the sun: government, public sector, private sector, environmentalists, and we all kind of realized this is a bigger problem than we realized.
Right.
Why is it dying? Well, fast forward to 2019, the county commission, as a result of that summit, created a task force to really take a look at the issues affecting Biscayne Bay as a whole. And I was appointed to that task force. I chaired it, and as a result, we realized that everything we do on land ends up in the bay. And when I say everything, it's from stormwater system, when it rains and it flushes all that stuff into those grates and the storm drains, all that is flushed into the bay. If you're in a septic system and you're in a low-lying area that floods, all that nastiness ends up in our groundwater and into the bay. The canals that keep us dry move water into the bay, and whatever's in those canals ends up in the bay.
Really?
And then, of course, us, if we don't, if we keep using plastic and if we keep throwing things out, out the window and littering, it's a problem. And so it's a combination of factors that have gotten us to this point. And nature's starting to, sound the alarm. The seagrass dieoff was that big alarm. And again, my position came out of the task force report. We created a report for the county commission with a number of recommendations on how to attack this issue, with a focus on improving the water quality, of course, first. And chief bay officer, because what we also found was that there were a lot of folks working on things, but no one was really coordinating anything.
Right.
We have jurisdictions along the bay, state, federal, municipalities, you name it. Everyone's doing something, but no one's really coordinating anything. So that hence we recommended this chief bay officer position.
Yeah, where there's a saying where attention goes, energy flows, right? And
Right.
Where you inspect is where you're going to start seeing the results and where you start measuring. I had no idea that all of those the stormwater and all the canals and everything dumped into the bay. You would have thought that they would have come up with some other type of plan to, I don't know, somehow, clean it up if they're going to do that prior to dumping it in, right?
Yeah, the thing is that, we grew too fast to even catch up. And so why we shouldn't even be on septic systems. You know what a septic system is, right?
Yeah, of course.
So, it's like, no, we should, but we grew so fast that we said, oh, well, later on, let's get people on septic and later on we'll come back and connect them. Well, later on never really happened. And now we're on a fast track trying to get people off septic because of the situation that we're in right now. So, we need to take action now. And so I commend the county for doing that, for stepping up and really focusing on the hard problem and start the solution.
So going forward, what are your top priorities that you're focused on? The biggest hitters that would have the biggest impact on the health and wellness of the bay?
Well, I like to say that let the science lead the way. And so when, let's start with the hot spots first, the areas that have the most significant nutrient pollution first. And, we talked about North Bay, and probably that's where we're going to start. And it's a question of everything under the sun. When we I like to describe it as a triage approach. Let's stop the bleeding and then treat the disease, right? And treating the disease is more of a long-term approach, but at least if we know where the hot spots are, let's start there. Let's do what we can. Let's make the investments in those areas. Let's show the progress. Let's show how we've lowered nutrient pollution so that we can continue on that same path forward. So yeah, it's going to take a while, but what I'm encouraged, because everyone's at the table now. Everybody wants to be part of the solution. And so that's encouraging. And that's another reason why I took the job.
Yeah. No, it's fantastic. And the fact that this role is the first of its kind around the country, pretty much. I mean, I don't think there's any other chief bay officer role out there. And so proud to be at the tip of the spear, and leading that charge, was having so many years of experience and obviously very passionate about what to do. And you have a lot of, wind behind you, right? You get the wind in your sails now, which is absolutely wonderful to have you on there. As the regular people that live and enjoy Key Biscayne, what are things that we can do? Because you see the videos of people just dumping off their water bottles on the beach, and they're just making a mess. What can we do to help you do your job and succeed?
There's so many things that the average person can do, and believe it or not, you can make a difference. And I mean, I always start with lower your plastic consumption. We really don't need to be buying plastic water bottles in the store. We can have, regular cups, the thermal cups, fill them up with our water. Miami-Dade County water is very good to drink. It's filtered perfect. There's no reason why we should be buying bottled water. That's one. So lower your plastic consumption, because we see so much plastic and all this microplastic all over the bay. And guess what? Our fish are eating that, and then we fish them, we eat them. And then that, it's like this.
Yeah. So it's a constant cycle.
Yeah. And then another thing is, volunteer, do a cleanup. I mean, everything, it does make a difference. I'm like Louis is doing, I do it too when I walk my dog. And as far as walking dog, pick up dog poop. Believe it or not, the dog poop has heavy levels of nitrogen that if you leave on the sidewalk or in the grass, it goes into the groundwater or into the storm drain, ends up in the bay. So just little things like that make a big difference, believe it or not. So, and then get involved, really support the efforts that we're engaged in making, in Biscayne Bay recovery. Everyone can do their part, really.
Yeah. And so that takes on individual ownership and accountability and individual leadership for yourself, right? As an individual and a resident here in Miami, you want to live in a great place, and you want to keep you want to keep your house clean, so to speak. And if everybody had that mentality, they're picking up after themselves, it would make a huge difference. And so that's a big mindset, shift, right?
It's a different culture change, and also understanding that, we're blessed that we have such a diverse community here, right? People come from all over the world and make Miami their home, or they travel here to enjoy our resources. And so, not everybody comes with the same culture, dealing with trash and whatever, and disposal. And you don't really think about it, you just throw it in the garbage and it goes to some landfill somewhere. Nobody thinks about it. But that's the way we should be disposing of trash. We shouldn't be throwing trash out of our cars into the street or out of our boats. It's really, changing that mentality to create leave no trace. You go to a park, you go out boating. I mean, come on, it's simple, and you wouldn't trash your own, home or backyard. And Biscayne Bay is our backyard.
Exactly. And and it takes a village, right? A village of role models. The people that are out there on the boats could take on almost, a leadership role as, a bay leader, so to speak, where, you have the community kind of policing themselves in a sense. So, kind of keeping things clean.
I don't call it policing. I just call it educating, because, I mean, and we are working with law enforcement actually to educate folks on the water, right? Because again, people coming to vacation in Miami, they rent a boat. It's very easy to do. And then you don't realize that we have manatees that are slow moving mammals, very unique to us. And they, people don't know how to spot them. They don't follow the wake zones, and then we're having major issues with with killings of manatees this year. I mean, it's higher than ever, and we really need to boat responsibly. If there's a way to enjoy and not destroy.
Yeah. And so, as we start wrapping this one up, tell me a little bit about the other leadership roles you're in. I know that you've been involved with the Girl Scouts quite a bit, and some other leadership roles. Tell me a bit about that.
Well, the Girl Scouts are, they're so close to my heart. I always wanted to be a Girl Scout when I was little, and my parents just didn't, being Cuban parents, they just didn't understand that whole scene at the time. And so I had the opportunity to join their board years ago, and so I am now a real Girl Scout.
That is awesome. That is awesome. I have an 8-year-old daughter, and I would love to get her in that. So we might have to connect offline with that one.
For sure. I got to tell you, it's one of the best organizations for girls, because you learn so much, and it's really, they turn, the cookie sale is really just at, financial literacy for a young girl. Set goals, to sell, to, have the confidence to speak to people, and even deal with no, I don't want to buy, with rejection. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's just a great program. That's the cookie sale. And then also the natural, enjoying the nature and all the things they do outside. Kids are so stuck on their electronics now, but really getting kids outside and really making that connection to nature is huge. So yeah, the Girl Scouts are awesome. I love them. They're the best. And the other leadership role that I'm proud of is the work I've done at the Greater Miami Chamber of Commerce through their Resilience Committee. We just, our tagline is the environment is the economy. And so we take on different issues, right? With regards to infrastructure, for example. Now we have to do all this infrastructure, septic to sewer, seawalls, flood proofing, all that. And all that has an economic stimulus to our community, believe it or not. So from these problems and challenges that we have, we can create economic stimulus and opportunity. And that's kind of like what we like to sell over at the chamber, that the environment is the economy and it does have a return on investment when you invest in it.
Oh, absolutely. And it's a huge draw right now for a lot of these tech companies coming down is, we're blessed to be where we are with the sun and the natural resources and the beaches and everything else. And yeah, I mean, that does drive the economy in a very big way. Absolutely.
Absolutely. And, I'm, like I said, I'm very encouraged. We've got great leadership on deck. We have a mayor that's made the environment #1 on her agenda. And we have a county commission that's focused on solutions and improving, despite the fact that we have this pandemic challenge. We realize that we have to preserve our bay. It's our economy. It's synonymous. You have, multi-million-dollar condos because they have a view to the state.
Right. Yeah.
So there's a lot at stake if we don't, start repairing the damage.
Well, Irela, you're definitely a game changer, and that's why we have you on the show, because, first role of its kind, you're doing amazing things. You're also a fantastic role model, a mentor to a lot of women out there who want to, look at you and say, okay, I can take on a role like that. I can be a major leader in the community, and you're doing an amazing job with that. And whatever else we can do to help you do your job, we all want to enjoy the Bay, right? Everybody gets rewarded with this project for sure. So thank you so much for being on. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Sergio. It was a pleasure. And thank you, Game Changers.
All right. Awesome.
If you loved what you heard in today's episode of Game Changers, please subscribe and rate us. The lessons and the stories in these podcasts are immensely valuable, so I invite you to share them with a friend who needs to hear it. You may end up being the game changer in their lives.